Hello, everyone. This is Martin with Steadfast and Orion in Houston. Hope you guys are doing well, staying safe. Let's talk trucking, shall we? In this video, I want to talk about dispatching. What is a dispatcher? What is the role of a dispatcher? How do you become a dispatcher? What are your hours? So, just a couple things. I'm gonna try to make it under 10 minutes or at least 10 minutes long. So, let's talk about it. What is a dispatcher? A trucking dispatcher in this instance. It's a person that is in charge of the shipments that a trucking company has and distributing them accordingly within a timely manner and a safely manner. Let's say you have 10 loads going to Dallas, 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. You have to make sure that the drivers that you assign to those loads are able to do those loads with the hours of service within their driving time of it that they have available. You have to check their on duty time, make sure that they have the hours to work. You're basically managing in both the drivers and managing the loads that you have behind your desk. So that's pretty much the role of a dispatcher. Now, how do you get into dispatching truck drivers? There's different ways. There's a lot of different ways. The easiest way, I believe, is to go work at a trucking company, work for a trucking company, better yet. Not a lot of people are going to throw anybody just into dispatching. To be honest with you, if you aren't a dispatcher already, the way they're going to find their new dispatcher, they being the trucking company, is by seeing who in the organization possesses some of the skills that the dispatchers need to have. And maybe they'll let you in. But to be honest with you, not everybody can or should dispatch truck drivers. But that's for another video. If you go to school, if you go to college, right now they're teaching, I think, logistics, but they're not teaching you how to dispatch. They're teaching you the paperwork aspect of it. That's great if you're going to be a broker too, because they show you that part of it. If you go work for a trucking company, though, for instance, if you go to school, if you go to college and try to learn logistics, because I saw that they're now teaching that, you're going to go to school to pay someone to teach you. Versus if you go to work for a trucking company, you will be paid to learn if you don't already know the business. Especially if you're young. If you're in your 20s, that's a great way to start. My personal opinion, I started when I was 20-something years old, 20 years old. I'm now 40. It's been 20 years. And I'm still here. I didn't know that this was a career, that dispatching was a career, that dispatching was a job, that I could have made something of myself doing this. And I have, and we have, and we're, now with our own business. And it takes its time to get where you need to get, but if you're patient enough, it'll happen. What does a dispatcher do for a living? For instance, right now, all the drivers that we have are either currently on a load, or I have yet to give them their next load for today, tomorrow, and so on. So what I do is I make sure that the drivers that are out, under our authority, under our responsibility, I make sure that they have the work that they need for as long as possible and as much as possible. I distribute the work accordingly. I try to, see what the drivers need, what they don't need, how I can help them. They give me feedback. I give feedback back to the CSRs, customer service representatives. Then they give feedback to the customer. Basically, it's a chain of command. My job as a dispatcher, or the job of the dispatcher, primarily is to focus on the driver and keeping him running. Dray rates are not necessarily the dispatcher's responsibility. I think they should not put rates on the dispatchers for many reasons, but there's some trucking companies that are small enough to where they have to do that, or not knowledgeable enough to split something up to not do that. But it's kind of a recipe. It could be a recipe for disaster in a lot of ways if you have someone that doesn't know rates and is dispatching, or vice versa, where the drivers think that the dispatcher knows the rates and he really or she really doesn't know them. That's why I think it's best for the dispatchers not to know the rates, because it won't be as noticeable when drivers say that the dispatchers have favorites. If the dispatchers don't know how much loads pay, it's easier for them to dispatch. If they know how much loads pay, it's harder for them to dispatch, because then they know that the drivers are only going to want the easy loads, the better paying loads. They're not going to want these loads because they don't pay as much and they're harder. And over time you learn that, and it's good for a dispatcher to know that, but you can't hold a dispatcher to that as a driver, because the dispatcher has a different job function, a different job description also than just to give you work and the work that you want to get. So this one, what is a dispatcher's schedule like? This one I'm going to shock a couple of people, because a lot of drivers, especially in the transportation industry, think that the dispatchers are just behind the office, sitting behind the office, not doing anything but typing in whatever. I have seen dispatchers do way more than just type in behind the keyboard. There are some dispatchers that are dedicated to the craft, and there are some dispatchers that are not dedicated to the craft. Just like drivers. There's some drivers that are dedicated to their job, some drivers that are not dedicated to their job. It's just they don't want to go work somewhere else from 8 to 5 because they want to make their own schedule and have their own hours and go and come as they please. So you have that type of dispatcher as well, that they don't want to go above and beyond for the driver, above and beyond for the customer, above and beyond for the company. They're just there for a paycheck. Those type of dispatchers, those type of people are the ones who tend to not last long in trucking. You can spot those from a mile away. Or sooner or later they get burned out and they want to go do something new. They don't want to dispatch anymore. They don't want nothing to do with transportation anymore because they've put up with it for far too long. So your schedule as a dispatcher is one of the most important things that you need to know about, because you honestly do not have a schedule. You do not have a set hour. You're going to come in from 7 to 3, 7 to 4, 8 to 5. There's no such thing. Maybe the trucking company that you work for allows you to come in at 7 or allows you to come in at 8 to the office, but I guarantee you any dedicated dispatcher is working on their phones pretty much for the most part of the day and the weekends. I have yet to meet a dedicated dispatcher that doesn't do that. I have met a bunch of not dedicated dispatchers that don't care, and once it's 3 o'clock, once it's 4 o'clock, they're gone. Their phones are shut off. They don't answer their phone no more. Their time is their time, and you're not going to budge from that, and they're not going to budge from that. So the dispatcher's functions are to service the customer and service the driver within a timely and safely manner, and distribute those loads properly and evenly. Go to work at a trucking company. Let the trucking company pay you to learn instead of you paying school, so that they can teach you half of it, because you're not going to learn everything. And understand that dispatching isn't for everybody. It's a great career. It's a great career. If you learn it and if you're good at it, you can make some money, and you can have job security. If you're a great dispatcher, they say dispatchers have big egos. But the good ones, the real good dispatchers, I tip my hats to them. They know what they can do, and they know what they're capable of doing. To those dispatchers who think that they're good at what they do, but they ain't really good at what they do, those are like a bunch. In 10 fingers, you can count how many of those exist. 1 or 2 good dispatchers out of 10 you're going to find. The other 7, 8. So understand that about dispatching. There are some that are dedicated to their craft, and there are some that just simply don't care about their craft. It's just a paycheck. Those are the ones that are harmful to this industry. But if you want to be a good dispatcher, I advise you to work at a trucking company and learn everything. And the younger you are, sometimes the better, because you have, more of an open mind. The older you are, sometimes you've already been set in your ways. You think you know it all, or you want to do this way, and then it doesn't work that. So just be open to dispatching, be open-minded with dispatching, because everything changes every single day. Nothing stays the same. So thank you guys for watching. We'll be back with more.